Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Radical Care for Christian Counselors podcast. And I'm Bethany Boring, your host, also founder of Step Out and Thrive. And again, you can find more information about Step Out and Thrive on my splash page. It's such an easy page to get connected. It's really hard. Ready? It's bethanyboring.com. We try to keep that as easy as I can to make sure that people can find it and get connected. It's got all of my links, including the brand new Step Out and Thrive community. And yes, there is a tier that is completely free and is going through this current podcast series this summer with you. So if you want connected and to get resources and to join in the conversation, you're welcome here. Would love to have you as part of that. Without further ado, I want to get into today's content because last week we talked about relational circuits being on, off, and dim. Some of you guys were just like, oh my goodness. And that's what's hard about this is that it really would be great to have some conversations around this. And that is what is offered in some of the higher levels of this community. But it's great to have it in the threads, great to have those conversations started. However, it is a really difficult once you become aware of this to see if can somebody else relate to this? Like when I was in this conversation, I was completely out of it, and I realized later why, and I didn't condemn myself for it. Became curious and became aware, and that changed everything. And so I'm hearing comments like that. I'm hearing realities like that. So you guys, you're in the right place. Great job. Glad to have you guys here. And so today we're going to add a little bit more of awareness because we talked about last week how you can't really go about changing anything that you're really not aware of. And I use the illustration, I use this a lot again in my groups, is that, my kids will walk into the room and go, Mom, it doesn't need cleaned. It's fine. Meanwhile, I walk into the room and I see toys everywhere. I see underwear hanging from the ceiling fan. I see stuff all over the wall. I'm going, I don't see their beds made. I'm like, what? What in the world? What are you talking about? The reality is here, I'm seeing something that they don't see or they don't choose to see. And so a lot of this is when you become aware of what your relational circuits are doing and what the levels of the brain and what it's doing, you can be more aware of wait a second, what I thought was going on, or maybe the source of what I thought was going on isn't, huh, what does that mean? And so you're going to feel a little uneven. You're going to feel a little off balance because everything that you've been trusting and experiencing now, it's like the matrix. It's like, do you want to take this pill or this pill? So once you see differently, it forces you to change a little bit to adapt to the changes that are occurring. So all this to say is if you feel a little off balance after last week, that's completely normal. It's okay. Stick in this with me. And if you need some confirmation, come join us in the community and we will let you know that we are right there with you. And a lot of this work I'm continuing to do as well. So please know every single group that I do, every single discussion that I do, I'm coming in this going, I need help. I'm right there with you. I do not have all my stuff together. If that's what you're looking for, that won't be here. I'm so sorry to disappoint you. But if you're looking for a completely, well, I would call myself normal, but some people would disagree with that. So if you're looking for somebody that doesn't have their stuff together, but loves to teach and loves to be aware and loves to do community together, you found her. That's me. So just clear the air there. Clarity for you. So today we're going to be talking about levels of the brain. There are so many different teachings out there. And so I am doing a very simplified overview today. You can go really deep into this stuff, and and I love it. And sometimes people are like, what? So this is just going to be a very basic overview, but I think it will explain some things because, again, what I'm noticing is I'm having clients, I'm having even counselors come to me admitting that they're wrestling with things, and I'm going and I explain the levels of the brain to them, and they're like, oh. A lot of times we're just so self-critical, thinking I should be better than this, or I should do this differently, or I should whatever. Anytime you say I should, it raises concern in my brain. And so with that being said, I want to take some of those shoulds away, and we're not gonna sit there and go, oh, that's okay. We're not gonna excuse everything, but we're gonna bring some curiosity to the conversation. Like, okay, if this is true, if these levels of the brain are true, if this is happening in response to what's going on in my life, what do I need to do? What do I need to ask God to do? What do I need to do differently? What kind of curious questions do I need to ask myself? What kind of curious questions do I need to ask others? So hopefully that makes sense. We're not asking you to go out and change everything this week. I don't want you to change anything, honestly. I just want you to sit in this awareness and look around the room and see what you notice. You might see some amazing things. Like, I love it when my kids have the sunlight glowing through the window. Most of the time, you can see the window. Sometimes you can't, and then it's really sad. But most of the times, you can see the window. And I love that. I would not change that. I don't want to change that. And so you're going to see some things that you want to stay the same. That's good too. But just become aware instead of getting this rampage and changing everything without understanding it all. Just be aware of what's going on. So with that being said, I want to go into the levels of the brain. And so you could probably pull up a diagram if you wanted to. I thought about doing that here on video, but it just was easier just to do this. So if you go and you take your hand and you put it on the back of your neck, Bob Hamp and Polly Hamp do this all the time. I love this illustration, but that is your brain stem, or BS, or you can make several different jokes about that. And it is the source of all the F words, and not the F words you're probably thinking about, but it is your response. It is your instinct of how to respond in situations. So, faint, fawn, freeze, fix, and there's another one that I'm missing. Flight. Yes, flight, fight, freeze, fawn, fix. There we go. Got it. And so that is the typical reaction. And I'm sure you guys have seen that. If somebody's getting chased by a tiger, they're in the middle of their amygdala right now. They respond because it's a life survival skill. God has given us that. But if I'm at the dentist and I'm opening my mouth and my amygdala gets triggered, I don't want to run from that situation. But that can happen. We've seen people with those kind of reactions. And so what that's saying is that that is a survival instinct. God has put that in us for a reason, to survive. But a lot of times, especially those in our life that have been through a lot of traumatic experiences, whether it's the big T, little t, I'm not going to get into all that. They've gone through trauma. A lot of us have gone through trauma. The way we can respond is through our amygdala. That's the immediate response, because our brain is experiencing something that could bring harm to us, and it's responding in that way. And again, last week we talked about deep breathing and why that's important, why that's not just a bunch of jib jab that's out there, because I hear that all the time. It really does provide oxygen to the brain, and that's the best way of telling the brain, you are okay. I understand the way you're reacting. I agree with that. I understand, but it's not what you believe is happening. Thank you for wanting to protect me, but I don't need protected right now. Okay. So, in order to do that, you have to be aware again of what's going on, because if you're not, you're going to go, oh my gosh, my body's completely out of control. I'm having a panic attack, or I'm running from this, but I don't know why. Do you see? Do you see now why this can get really complicated if you don't understand the levels of the brain and why it's impacting it the way that it is? And so that's the amygdala. That's the first level that you can go to. The second level up is called the midbrain. Well, but it's also got a lot of different parts. So I'm not going to go into all of that. But really, long story short, a lot of time this is kind of, okay, I've got this itch, I need scratch. This is the area of the brain that says, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I'm stressed out, and I need it to calm down. I need to calm down, and I'm not sure how. I need that scratch, that scratching. It needs itched, and I need it now. You guys get it? I understand where that's at. These are the level that a lot of addictions happen, because a lot of people look for that pill, they look for that cigarette, they look for that drug, they look for the TV, they look for the porn, they look for the shopping, they look for the money. Substitute your addiction of choice here, right there, because it scratches the itch. Nobody's asked why the itch is there to begin with. Nobody's asked, wait, am I really hungry, or am I really just trying to ignore an emotion that's going on? But the itch is here, so I need to scratch the itch, and I'm not going to worry about all that other stuff, because again, you haven't reached that part of your brain that can do that. You're staying there. You're taking care of what absolutely needs to get taken care of. So it kind of goes like, oh crap, I need to survive, right? Into that, oh, wait a second. Okay, there's more control here. So you're really adding the control the higher you go in your brain. Now, to complicate things, so as you guys know, the brain produces different chemicals, right? So serotonin and melatonin and oh, what's the other one? Dopamine. All of that is involved. Dopamine is also involved in the higher levels, but it's involved. There's some levels down here, and a lot of that controls mood. Some of that controls emotional regulation. Some of that controls the need to be hungry, or the need to be full, the need to be um, all of that can be controlled in that. And so what happens is that these levels can fluctuate up and down and all around. So it can go dangerously low, it can go dangerously high, but it's all over the place. It's not a steady release chemical. It's up and down and up and down and up and down. And so what can happen, especially in the middle brain, and especially with addictions, is since it's going up and down, up and down, up and down, if the itch needs scratched, you go back to what? The scratch, and you make the scratch go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. You see why that's easy to get. And I'm not explaining anything away, because I know a lot of us have somebody in our family, or us ourselves have gone through levels of addiction. I'm not excusing it away. I'm not, but I'm just more of an awareness thing right now. Is this is how this happens. This is how this develops. And so I'm not going to get into all the treatments or anything right now, but I just want you guys to be aware of this in the amygdala and the middle brain. And so what this has to do with us is a lot of times that you can put a lot of different behaviors in your brain about how you solve certain situations, how you may even go off the handle and get angry at something when it's just a small little problem like that. And it's because that's how you scratch the itch, and that solves it. You're just solving what's going on. You've never gone on to the higher level of the brain. And so how do we get to the higher levels of the brain, you ask? I know there is hope. It's all good. And so after this is really cool, because once you get into the next level, you've reached a whole higher level of the brain. And I don't know how true this is, honestly, because I haven't seen any hard, fast numbers, but I've heard this said by several different psychologists, not just one. But most of America, most people never actually get to live most of their life out of the higher levels of their brain. They've never experienced it because they're so stuck in trauma. They're so stuck into scratching the itch. They're so stuck in just doing life as is. They've never been able to access the higher levels. And so this can go back to learning. This can go back to reading comprehension. This can go back to family connections. There's so much there, right? So if we don't have the tools and the resources in our tool belt right now to deal with that, if they're stuck in that part of the brain and we can't relate to that part of the brain, and we haven't given them the tools and the resources to even get to the higher part of the brain, is it really all their fault? Just putting that thought out there. I'm not blaming, I'm not condemning. Again, it's more of an awareness thing. Okay, the next level. I feel like, thank you, Bethany. The next level, level 3, is called the limbic system. And some of you guys are aware of this, some of you guys aren't. But here's the thing about the limbic system that I love. It produces oxytocin. Yay! Okay, what's oxy? You guys are like, why oxy? What? It's not the other drug you're thinking of. If you're like wired like me and you know all these different things, no. What it does is, this is a pain reliever that releases when you can activate this higher part of your brain. And here's the big trick: it is a steady release. So when does this get released? You're probably wondering. It is when you are in a safe environment. It is where you can feel completely seen. It is when you are in deep community with a lot of people. And you've probably been there when you're in a conversation with someone and time seems to stand still. And when you really feel seen, where you don't have to become anybody else, and you can just be, and you feel understood and safe and seen and secure. When all that stuff happens, you are in the middle part of your brain. You're not trying to survive anymore. You're not having to protect yourself. And even if this itch happens, you're in a safe place where it can be handled in a different way. You don't have to immediately scratch. You can actually bring it out into the open. You have resources now that you didn't have before. That is in the middle. Do you see the change that happens when you get out of that survival mindset? When you can just be and rest. And we're telling everybody, what's wrong? Why can't you just be? Why can't you just rest? Hello. because all of this hasn't been addressed. All of this hasn't been aware of yet. And so when you reach the middle, you have that, but there's even more. There's even more, you guys. There's even more. The last level that we're going to talk about today is the frontal lobes right here. And that is really when deep connection happens because it's the identity center of the brain. When we can connect with the frontal lobes and people can see us and we can see them and God can see us and we can see God and we can understand who we are and we're through that identity and we live through that identity, it changes everything because it not only changes how we see everything, but it changes the process in which we see everything. It literally changes the way our brain functions. Yes, you're still going to reach the amygdala, but you're going to have that awareness. Wait a second. I am created in the image of God. I have a whole brain. I know that because I've experienced the middle part of my brain. I've experienced deep connection with my God and my Father and my Jesus and with the Holy Spirit. And I know that's true. So I know that He has given me the capacity and I have the capacity inside of me through the Holy Spirit that I can access these curious thoughts, that I can access these true statements because I've experienced it in my life, through my life, and it is who I am. Do you see why that changes everything? Because that can even help you get out of your amygdala. Because that's going to give you, wait a second, God's created me, and I know that I can take a deep breath and that can get me out of this environment because I know I don't have to run. Now, there are times when you're chased by a tiger, and at that moment, I love your identity and you are a child of God, but that amygdala better be doing what it needs to do so you can run. Do you see what I'm talking about? You have access to all of those levels, but a lot of times we get stuck in those levels if we don't A, know about the others, but B, we haven't been able to really experience the others. And so when you offer someone that safe place to just be seen, when you offer that, and you don't have to go through, you're in this level of the brain. No, you can sit with them and say, man, can we just take a couple deep breaths together? I just need that. So you give them a couple, and you look at them like, wow, I notice that you just seem really heavy. Like maybe there's some heaviness that you're carrying and you don't have to share, but I just want you to know that I see you and I love you. And you know what? I don't have anything on my calendar for the next hour. I would love to just sit with you and get curious about that if that's something that you would like to talk about. But if not, I'm always here too. You might have given that person a gift of getting out of their amygdala and maybe to the first part of their brain. And they have no idea. So this has been a great session today. Hopefully that you can see these parts of the brain. If you are part of our community and you're going through this podcast series in the free part of our community, you know that there's a resource there that can help you see the outline of all of this and allows you to get curious this week. Again, we're going over relational circuits, which was last week, and then parts of the brain, which is this week. So I would love to hear the connections that you guys are making and the awareness that we're making. Because again, we're just entered the room. We're just looking around. We're just getting curious in what God's doing and what we see. We're not fixing, but it's a great start. So with all that being said, I'm so glad that you're here. Again, check out bethanyboring.com, which is a splash page that can get you connected to all the resources, all the good stuff. And if I can be a part of your life, if you would love to go deeper in our community, we'd love to connect with you. Whether it's the tip groups or the tip community groups, we'd love to connect with you. We're here for you. So remember, dare to do more than just survive. Step out and thrive. We can't wait to see you guys here next week. And I'm just excited to hear what God's doing this summer. All right. See you guys later. Bye.